Hey guys, what's up? It is week 284, and yeah, I have some reviews for you, but first and foremost, I want to talk about a new show that's coming up. I know, new show, every fucking week I have a new show coming up. But yeah, this one is going to be kind of a strange show. It should be up next Saturday, and it is like 1980s, it's Tear and a track. We pick a 1980s horror film, and my guest picks a song that he feels is, connected in a way to that song, and we talk about the movie, we talk about the song. Now, the first one is shot. I am going to edit it. I'm going to try to maybe make a music video with the song and the movie. I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off, depending, how I feel and what I see in it. But I noticed that the lighting is a little lower than I would have liked, and it is kind of distracting. I want to apologize to my guests and apologize for that. But hopefully it doesn't deter you from watching it. I think it should be a good time, and hopefully the segment, gets some traction, and there'll be more regardless. There'll at least be a couple more of them, no doubt. So yeah, let's hop into the movies. And this one is crazy. This is from Visual Vengeance. Yes, Visual Vengeance has been putting out a lot of SOV, a lot of low budget underground stuff, older stuff from the 90s and everything like that. And this one is by Todd Sheets. Now, it's funny, I actually covered this movie for 1994 before this release was out, of course, and I watched this really crummy VHS rip, and it was just awful looking. I couldn't obviously find the VHS. A lot of the Todd Sheets VHSs go for big bucks, although I have a handful. Do not have Moonchild. So I was like, oh wow, this is kind of neat. This is actually one of two that I know of Todd Sheets werewolf films, but it's not exactly your typical werewolf film. So, essentially, this is a post-apocalyptic world. It feels a lot, like the Mad Max kind of stuff. But I initially compared this directly to Joe D'Amato's Endgame. And if anybody's seen Endgame, it was probably Todd Sheets back in the day. The guy has a huge love for genre cinema. And so, essentially, what we have here is there's this evil corporation that performs, experiments on people, basically makes hybrids and everything like that. And there's this guy who's been mixed with some sort of monster, like a werewolf. He's essentially, but he's not. He's a scientific werewolf. Don't think Project Metal Beast, not quite like that. But essentially what happens is he escapes, but his son is still in the lab, so his goal is to get his kid back. He also runs into the Alliance, essentially. There's a group of underground people that are trying to fight the, fight the good fight, Star Wars, whatever movie you want to throw that into, World War II, anywhere, right, in history. So he runs into them, and they send a group of bounty hunters that are also medically, not medically, they're transform robot kind of deal. They have cybernetics and stuff in their body as well. Think class of 1999. So a few of them are after him, this group and everything like that. And when this guy gets real mad, he turns into a fucking werewolf. Now, there's different variations of his werewolf phasing. Sometimes he's a big guy in a suit. Other times he just kind of messed up in the face. Now, the practical effects when they're there are really strong. Todd Sheets was always very good with the gore. He's always very good with the practical effects. Some of the stuff that I thought really stood out was, the cybernetic stuff on a lot of the mutants. I guess you'll call them mutants. Every post-apocalyptic movie has mutants and cannibals. It's very, Mad Max style, but it feels more like the Italian post-apocalyptic movies, of course. Now the acting ranges, some of the line delivery is a little rough on times, but this is a big, very local, regional group of people making this movie, and there's a family setting for sure. Some of the fight stuff is okay, some is a little rough in times, but you remember these people. I feel like I'm repeating myself in the other review, but it's exactly the same. A lot of the fighting is iffy, but there are good stunts too. There's especially for a low budget, right? There's people jumping from truck to truck while they're moving. That's pretty crazy under a viaduct or a bridge or something. You're just that's a lot. That's gutsy for an independent movie. I know, especially if somebody gets hurt. So there's some cool positives about that. Yeah, the movie has some really cheesy dialogue, especially some of the younger people. And it's not their delivery. It's just the writing is cheesy, purposely cheesy and stuff like that. So yeah, there's some big fight scenes. There's a lot of, it's very ambitious. It's very ambitious flick. And you think about it, they're pulling guns out and aiming them at trains and shit. You're like, wow, that's just kind of crazy guerrilla style filmmaking they had in the 90s. So the one thing that I noticed, this is a major improvement from the VHS rip or the VHS. It looks way better, and people are like, "Oh, it's just SOV. It can't look that much." It's from the original negatives, and I was just like, "This actually looks really solid." So it's a new master from SD master from original tapes, and it does make a huge difference watching it on instead of watching it on a bunch of dub tape or uploaded on YouTube or even the original VHS. I imagine looks much worse than this remaster from the original tapes because this looks pretty good. very good for an SOV. So I was impressed with that. And the special features on here, you get an audio CD of the movie soundtrack, a new audio commentary of director Todd Sheets and star Augie Alvarez, and you get also another commentary with Todd Sheets, Individual Vengeance, alternate original VHS cut of Moonchild. See, now I think this is the original cut I saw, and I felt like this one probably flowed a little better. This is my favorite special feature here. Wolf Moon Rising, the making of Moonchild documentary. That's great because they actually open up with like some of the footage from the Kansas City News, because he's from Kansas City, I believe. News footage of them like talking about Todd Sheets, and like the news coverage is covering all his movies, and it's all like 90s stuff. It's really cool. And then you have interviews with people on set, and they're like, "Oh, I had a blast," and it's just so cool and so sweet and just so family oriented, like a family like a big family making a movie, and you got to give Todd Sheets for that. The guy's genuinely one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet too. I met him at one of the Wastelands, and he sold me one of those rare tapes for like $20. Like back, this is like 10 years ago, but he's still making movies now. He always improves in quality on that. He's just, he puts everything into his movies, and sometimes he doesn't have much. That's a lot of these indie guys, and he's got heart, and heart goes a long way. As far as other features go, we have archival behind-the-scenes cast interviews, original VHS trailer, deleted ending, and that was kind of strange ending. Music video, Burn the Church, by Dissension, short film Sanguinary Desires, which I believe is on one of the Todd Sheets like packs, those movie pack shorts. I have like 5 or 6 shorts of his Todd Sheets Bone Hill Road trailer, of course. So yeah, and that is his other werewolf movie that came out probably 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, Moonchild. If you like it, pick it up. If you like Todd Sheets, pick it up. If you're interested in regional SOV work, you could do a lot worse. I enjoy it. It's cheap. It's low budget. It's not, and every time somebody says, "Well, I'm going to win any Academy Awards," and maybe if the SOV Academy Awards, there was SOV Academy Awards, they might win one. Let's bring it. Oscars need a SOV category, and we can bring SOV back. They should just do retro years, like for 1992, the best SOV movie was, anyways, Moonchild. Okay, the next one is from Blue Underground. It is a 4K, and it is The Quiet Days in Clichy. That word is always going to be a tongue twister for me. I'm going to overthink it every time I go to say it. But yeah, so the thing about this movie is there's some nudity right on the front. Oh, well. So this is 1970. It's by an author originally named Henry Miller. And this guy, they said, was like one of the groundbreaking authors. He wrote a lot about sex, a lot about these kind of things, taboo subjects that a lot of people wouldn't write about. And he wrote them in very, in-depth detail. And his writing works got him in trouble. Think a pioneer in that kind of, non-censorship kind of world. And this movie got some people in trouble who distributed it. It got seized in certain places, and previous work that was written by Henry Miller that was distributed and turned into a film and distributed did well. This one did not because of that, and it kind of grew a cult following. It is a black and white film, and context is everything. Now, saying that, I watched the film, and, I am a huge fan of exploitation. I'm a huge fan of, all kinds of cinema from all around the world, from different times and everything. And I'm pretty good at saying, well, it's a product of its time and whatnot. This is the first time I watched it. And Henry Miller is probably a self-confessed, sexist, chauvinist, that I was just like, this is really rough. Like, the 2 lead characters, I don't know how you make 2 characters who aren't actively raping and killing people seem worse than the Last House on the Left gang. Like, I hated these 2 more than I felt like they were worse people than David Hess and Krug and company, to be honest. Like, that's how I felt. Like, there's a lot of inner monologue, which is playful in the filmmaking. There's a lot of scenes of cities, beautiful European cities and stuff like that. So that stuff's good. The cinematography's cool. There's a little guerrilla style filmmaking. It's beautiful black and white. The 4K looks excellent. The acting is I'll give it ballsy, because there's actually balls. That's not what I meant there. But they don't pull their punches. They're naked. They do all sorts of things like that. And there's a lot of sex in the movie. So like that's there. But the characters are supposed to be these chauvinistic people. It's based on Henry Miller's real life, where he went around and had a lot of sex and all this stuff. They're just like saying like jokes like, "I got the clap." Well, who cares? Spread it. And it's just like, it's just trash. It's a different time. I understand. But this is the first time watching that I was just like, these characters are real rough to take. Real jerks. Like, I was just watching, I was like, I don't want to watch these guys anymore. Like, and it's kind of ruining my experience. But I understand it's product of its time. It's also based on a novel and everything like that. So just because the filmmaker's making it doesn't mean he buys into it. But this is the first time I know that whoever wrote it believed everything they were kind of in there. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times I'm like, just because they write a racist character doesn't mean that the person's racist. But this time I was like, yeah, it's because they wrote this. They definitely are into this shit. That's how I felt. I know. And that's unfair. And I will admit that. But as far as the quality is concerned, if you're like, there's a lot of taboo breaking stuff in here. 1970, there's sex in a bathtub with all this like food involved. There's lots of weird shit. There's lots of stuff that a lot of groundbreaking things, like European cinema would do. A lot of those, places like Cult Epics would put out a lot of these movies that push the sex boundaries and stuff, like from Scandinavia and Dutch films like that and everything. But here's what I enjoyed the most about the movie, the disc, the songs of Clichy, and its interview with Country Joe McDonald. And the music's probably the best part of it, even though the lyrics are really crazy and outdated. So, like, interview with him, and he talks about, this is a 10-year-old interview or something. And he talks about, performing this somewhere at, like, Black Panther's place, and a lot of the women start screaming, pig, pig, and he's like, oh, I don't really register that. And he like, kind of took a step back and realized, the lyrics were pretty dated even then, like for a lot of people, and not very progressive in a lot of ways, the antithesis of progressiveness, and I wouldn't even call them transgressive, I guess it would be transgressive. This would definitely be transgressive cinema in general, but the lyrics in the song probably not so much. Maybe they're taking some steps backwards. But hey, maybe some people would see it differently. So and like, he's just very intelligent, his approach about it, and just his understanding of it was very, very so much he put a lot of context in it, and just the way he talked about it was very refreshing. And then also we have Dirty Books, Dirty Movies, Barry Rossett on Henry Miller, interview with Henry Miller's editor and publisher, Barney Rossett. And I liked him because this guy is just open about it and the subject and all this kind of stuff, and he talks about the books being seized and the movies being seized and all this kind of stuff and the controversy. So you have to respect this movie for pushing boundaries, because anytime censorship's involved, they can go fuck. You should never, censorship's bad no matter what, and that kind of, and when it comes to art, censorship is bad for sure. And then finally we have a Midnight Blue interview with Barry Rossett. So we have I can't think of the guy's name. He's this Goldstein, is it? I think so. But this guy is like one of the best, like, porn guys, like a porn legend, and that interview is also really good because he's not afraid to ask the tough question. He don't give a shit. This guy doesn't care, and he goes at it, and he's not rude or anything, but they get pretty free with the answers and everything like that. And I thought this was good. So it's a nice package. And there's a lot of nudity, and there's a lot of visuals that are nice and stunning. It's just that these two characters, they're not going to be for everybody. They're going to be a little rough to take. But think context, 1970, all this kind of stuff. So, in America, it still looks at sex and stuff back then and now in a more prudish way. But at the same time, the way they treat women and talk about women is just rather disgusting. Okay, the next one here is from Dread Central. This is a British film. Among the Living, Epic Pictures here, new film. And I don't have that much to say about this, and I'm going to sound like a real jerk when I talk about this movie, and I apologize that, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with Among the Living. It's not a poorly made film. It's not poorly acted. It's nothing truly wrong with the movie. It's that, here's where we're getting at for me, personally. It is a very subdued, it is a very minimalistic, it's a zombie film, survival film. It's very so much, hey, we're following 2-3 characters and we're going to get glimpses into their past until the reveal at the very ending. And it's just, I've seen 500 movies like this, and I know it's popularized because The Walking Dead now came out, and again, but it seems like the last 10 years we've gotten many of these movies, and they're just very much, Dead Country was one that came out recently, which they're okay. They're perfectly fine, accessible movies with decent acting and decent special effects. The one thing that I did like that this movie incorporated, that I don't know if I saw too many more zombie movies do, I'm sure it's been there, is when you're bleeding, you're cut. That's when the zombies come, because they can smell it like piranha. And that's a nice touch. That's a cool way. They play with it with some of the human bad guys and stuff like that towards the end of the movie. It's shot in nice locations. It looks nice. There's nothing really wrong with it in terms of cinematography, acting, special effects. The script is fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's just very bland. You've seen this 50 times. And sometimes a dull, bland movie that's well made is worse than a bad movie. This is not a bad movie by any stretch of the means, to be honest. And the emotional ending, it packs a nice punch. It does. It's well done. And I think that if you really like zombie films, you're a zombie completist, you could do much worse. You could do way worse. And the ending packs that punch. It really does. It's just that the problem is the market is oversaturated. And again, this is me not being fair, but it's being honest. And this isn't going to be for, if you watch 15 zombie movies a year, this is one that you can probably skip. If you watch one, maybe give it a swing. But if you're watching zombie-oriented films, not exactly a zombie film, watch The Sadness. You're talking to a guy who turned off Virus 32 because he thought it was trite and cheap. And I know that's shitty to say, but it's the truth. It just wasn't for me. And I love zombie films. I just am getting completely burnt out on dull zombie films. And, it's hard. It's really hard to do, I feel sometimes a lot of independent filmmakers don't watch other independent movies, and it shows. Like, because they would have seen this movie 50 times already. But it's their take, and like I said, it's not bad at all. And there is obviously some emotional depth to the film. As far as special features are concerned, there's behind the scenes, the bee sting short film, and the director's commentary. Yeah, like I said, this actually was shot well in a nice place. Of course, it's kind of got the saturated look where they drain a lot of the colors too, so it's not exactly the most pleasant thing to stare at for an hour and a half, which is its intent. But again, seen it too many times before. Okay, here we go. Here's another one from Mondo Macabro, and this is the horrible sexy vampire. Now, they did have a slipcover version of this, and I think it said the horrible sexy vampire, and I think that was actually intentional. I thought it was a joke, or so it was a misprint, but no, I think it was potentially released somewhere like that. I don't know the story of this. 1971. This is a co-production. I feel like it is. It's from Spain. It's not. So this one right here. Now, this movie is a bit strange because it immediately reminded me of Baron Blood by Mario Bava, which came out a year later, and it has a lot of similarities. So what we have here is there is an invisible vampire. Kid you not. It's funny, the other Mondo Macabro movie I reviewed last week was like, it's Love Brides of the Blood Mummy, and it was supposed to be a mummy movie, but it was more like a vampire movie, and I was like, so this is a vampire movie, now it's more like an Invisible Man movie? What's going on? But that's not exactly. It does turn into a straight-up vampire movie. So what we have here is this vampire is attacking these beautiful women. Of course, they're usually naked at the time. There's lots of breastises in here, and sucks their blood, you know. There's a couple police detectives on the case, and this is what's strange. This is a weird structural thing here. There's a couple people that are onto it, so they go back to this castle, and like first 20 minutes they're dead, and you're like, I thought those were our main characters. I thought those characters were going to be in the entire film. But enter this young man who is basically going to inherit the castle, and he finally wants it, but there's a bunch of rules. He can't go in the basement. He can't do certain things. He can't bring anybody in the house unless he's going to marry him. Has to use like a maid that was like a butler that's from the same family lineage as the previous butler. So all this kind of stuff like that. So he moves in, and right away he starts to realize something's not right. He brings a girl there, and it's just everything's being real weird and everything, and eventually he finds out that it's his ancestor. He reveals himself to him, and he's cursed, and he must suck blood, and they have like a depth conversation here. So it reminded me very much of Baron Blood, right? And he wants to kind of like live in this castle, although Baron Blood has they're trying to renovate it and all that kind of stuff, which I actually really like Baron Blood. I think it's better than the Horrible Sexy Vampire, but I think this Horrible Sexy Vampire is interesting enough. And there's a nice touch here with the main guy and the cop going back and forth. There's a cop trying to get in the house and help him out here. And then at the very end, there's a nice little, I feel like there's a slight kind of little hint or a hint at something a little bit more that I enjoyed. As far as the special features are concerned, there is a commentary, audio commentary with David Flint and Adrian J. Smith, and I did enjoy that because they talk a lot about the movie, and they are not hyping this thing up. They're like, it's a solid movie, and I think that it's one of these ones that genre fans will seek out, and that's exactly what it is. Or was that the last commentary, Blood Mummies? I feel like both these movies are in that kind of line. Like, these are strictly for like genre horror fans, Euro horror fans, and this one's good. It's got good atmosphere. It's got a lot of nudity. It's got some kills. Strange that it's an invisible vampire, and he fights and attacks mostly invisible at times, but he does reveal himself, and it's a decent movie with good, gothic atmosphere and the tombs under the basement, all this kind of stuff. It's solid. I enjoyed it for what it is. Okay, the next one here is by my bud, Sean Donohue, and this is what is this company here? I always mess it up. It is Terrorvision, sorry about that. And this is from the partner label of Vinegar Syndrome. This is Blood, Guts, and Sunshine, the history of horror made in Florida. And God knows there has been a lot of it. Now, I don't know how in-depth I can go on this one. It's close to 2 hours long. I think it's over 2 hours, to be honest. And this just kind of focuses on all the horror created in Florida with interviews with who they could get. Some of the heavy hitters, of course, are Herschel Gordon Lewis, who's since passed. John Waters is in here. They have John Landis at a convention talking about Florida horror films. So there's a lot. And they start off at the very beginning. They start off as early as they can get to it. They start touching on, like, the creature from the Black Lagoon. Then they hit up Herschel Gordon Lewis and talk about his gore films, originally from Chicago, but he made a lot of his films with David Friedman in Florida. So they get into all this, the gore film, all that. And, the staying power of Herschel Gordon Lewis's films is staying Florida for sure. There's a lot of gore. And they go all the way up talking about William Graffet. He has a big box set out all about his films, and he's very Floridan filmmaker too, very regional. And these Florida films have a certain quality about them. They definitely know when a movie's from Florida or filmed in Florida. So we go up, we hit Tim Ritter, who's originally from Kentucky, I think, and now he was making movies in Florida. We have Joel D. Wynkoop in there. So we're hitting up, like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and we keep up all the way to the modern time. Now, what I would say about the documentary, jeez, I mean, yeah, I'm out of it, guys, today. A little tired. Is the one thing that I would negative on it, and that's just because it's very bloated in that end part. Like the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes maybe covers that history up to like the 90s, and then when we get to like Tim Ritter and stuff and past, it's mostly like an hour and like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So most of the movie is in the modern times, which makes sense though, because more of those people are alive. There's more of those people around to talk about the movie. They're more willing to talk about the movie. And Sean Donohue, the director himself, makes Florida horror films. And he has a lot of connection to the Sleazebox guys, to Ritter, and all these people. And Stephen Bureau's in there. So like all these people, Marcus Cook. And there's a very funny bit in here where Joel D. Wynkoop goes off about Marcus Cook. Everybody calls him, his name is wrong. They always call his name wrong. Everybody knows Marcus Cook is Marcus Cook, right? And there's a lot of like entertaining characters in here. There's the guy that runs the film shop. Shelby McIntyre, I believe his name is. He's in here. So it's a lot of people that have been with, Florida filmmakers and make their own films that talk about them. Now, Sean was joking. He posted this thing about somebody making fun of him. Like, this is just so people can sell their cheap, gross horror films or something like that. And it does feel like that at times. But hey, they got to advertise and they got to get the word out and stuff like that. And there's just a lot of, indie filmmakers from Florida. It's a huge point there. They also bring up, Jim Van Bever was in Florida for a while, and they unearthed films. There's so much going on in Florida. If you look at it, I'd say that it is one of the huge kind of markets in the indie horror world. Like I said, alone, Gator Blade Films, Sleazebox, Tim Ritter's still making stuff occasionally, so Joel D. Wynkoop is down there. So there's a lot of people in there that are still working, still active and stuff, and they do the best they can. They make these independent movies. They got guts, they got balls, and Joel D. Wynkoop is one of my favorite indie actors. He's just full of energy and he's a blast, and he's great in this too. And he there's some I guess drama at the very end during the credits, so stick around. There are some features on here as well, and I did watch them. Let me make sure Satan's Children Panel, which is a crazy Florida horror film I didn't even know really existed until they put it out, and that was nice seeing that. Grindhouse Video Tour, which is also really cool, and they've since moved over, obviously, to Kentucky. And then Scott Temperman's Home Video Store. This was actually my favorite, because Scott Temperman is a filmmaker. I think he worked on one of the Ghost Picture shows, the paranormal shows, and he makes film as well. He helped on Truth or Dare Part 5, which was a series originally created by Tim Ritter, who's in the documentary. So Scott Temperman has this like nice, cool room that he has dedicated to VHS, and it's a video store. Not dissimilar to this, but I would say much more authentic to the 80s style video store. And he talks about his collection, he talks about his films, and I really like seeing that. I love that kind of stuff. So if you're into Florida filmmaking, or horror films, or independent films, or just documentaries, why do I keep saying it like that? I can't help it. But yeah, check this one out if you're into docs. It's pretty cool stuff. Okay, the next one here is for my friend Jorge Delarosa. And Jorge is an independent filmmaker, and he's been making movies for a while. He's a super nice guy. Seeing him at Cinema Wasteland all the time. And you couldn't meet a nicer guy. And I know that he went through hell making Hellvan. He put a lot of hard work into Hellvan, and it shows. So here we go. It's an independent movie. It has a bunch of familiar faces in here, like Jim Roberts, Harry Collins. There's just a lot of people you'd recognize if you watch any Ohio independent films. Timothy Noventi is in here. James L. Edwards is in here. I know I'm missing a bunch of people, and I'm sorry for that. I watched this quite a bit ago, but it's got a lot of faces that I like seeing. And I'm going to say this now. They all do a great job. I was very happy with this one, I'm not going to lie. So, Jorge's also in the film as well, and a good role. So all independent movies, they don't hit with me a lot of times. There's not, I just feel like either they're very, they try, and sometimes they're just not, they don't work for me. Hellvan worked really well for me. It's got a good kind of it feels like an older film. And I want to say that as far as the police department and the fire department's concerned, they have a quality about them that makes them feel like they're from, like a 70s or 80s film, maybe more so 70s. And they have that regional quality about them. And all the characters are well developed for how many there are. So essentially what happens is there is this, awful fireman. I think there's the police and the fire guys get together, and they've gambled. They all know each other. It's a small town, and one of the firefighters is not very well liked. He's kind of an awful guy, and somebody's sleeping with his wife. When he finds that out, he is just kind of like a Satanist. He's crazy, and he goes and burns this, kills a bunch of kids. And when the cops catch on to him and the firefighters and all this, they chase him down, and he kills himself in this van, if I'm not mistaken. But he kind of like does this weird sacrifice where he blows his brains out in the van. Very gory, good special effects too. Good practical effects are awesome. So waste himself in the van, but the van comes back. And the van is, it's not your typical slasher that you think. It's like a rolling fucking pestilence van. It's just everybody it comes in contact with, they go crazy, or they just get this nasty disease, or they melt, or they gouge their eyes out. It's basically kind of like, I imagine what you see in that van is what you see at the end of the Beyond, where you just go completely mad. And like, so people start ending up like dying from illness, getting sick, all these people that arrested him. And there's some really good gags in here and stuff. Tim Novity and James L. Edwards together are really fun, and their scene is really great at the one point. And I again, there was one time I reviewed one with Tim in it, and I said something slight. I was negative on his performance, and I got to take. He's great in this. He's really good in this. He's like kind of an asshole cop. And James L. Edwards, I love him. Yeah, he's been on the show a bunch of times. So hey, you guys know James. He was on Hell, Living Dead. He's on Secret Top 10. Been a Tempe actor for years. So Harry Collins has been on the show. I know these people, so I'm biased. I'm biased as shit. I'm not gonna lie, but I wouldn't lie to you about that. The quality of it. I wouldn't lie to you. But I wouldn't lie. I would lie. I'm biased, but I won't lie to you. No, you see what I was saying though. Like, I am biased. I love it. I was very happy with the film, and I thought everybody did a really good job in it. So, but it's just fun seeing a lot of these familiar faces. It's gory, it's crazy, and it gets big and weird at the end. And it's ambitious as shit, and it has heart, and that's all it takes for me to like an indie movie, right? Not that they have good cinematography too. It's shot well. I was impressed with how the movie looked the first 5 minutes. I was like, why is this looks very professional. I don't know what camera they used. I don't know color grading afterwards. They definitely did all that kind of stuff because it looks really solid. And a lot of these independent movies, they don't color grade or the camera looks like shit. Hey, I was just talking about the thing I shot in the new segment looks like shit because I didn't light it right because I'm an idiot. So, no, bravo, man. Hellvan's a blast. It's gory. There's fucking zombies at the end. It gets chaotic. High kill count. Good dialogue. Funny dialogue. Scary dialogue at the same time. Emotional, too. Hellvan's great stuff, guys. Really recommend checking it out. There's special features on here. I Wish You Understood. Marv Connor comedy special. Behind the scenes. Commentary with cast and crew. Soundtrack. Trailers. Yeah, 86 minutes, too. In and out, baby. I like seeing it 86 minutes. That's what I'm all about. Your movie don't need to be 100 minutes. Your movie doesn't need to be 2 hours. Get me in and out. Watched Nightmare on Elm Street last night. 91 fucking minutes. Or something like that. Like, yeah. 95 minutes at most. 91. And that's a classic. So, like, you watch a lot of movies and it's like, that's 3 hours. For what? So, Hellvan, check it out. If I could find a link for you guys to purchase it, I'll do it down below. Okay, this next one was getting a lot of buzz, and this is the new Hellraiser from, it's on Hulu. It's directed by, geez, what the guy, David, he just did, David Bruckner, he just did Night House, which is really solid. So the new Hellraiser movie. Okay, we all know the history of Hellraiser, right? Hellraiser 1 and 2 are considered fairly well-respected films. I love them both. Hellraiser 3 is cheesy fun for a lot. And then 4, we have a dip off in quality. There's arguments there. Part 5, 6, 7. We have all these movies where they didn't really feel like Hellraiser movies. They just slapped Pinhead in there so the Weinsteins could keep the rights. Some people will argue that. Some people say, no, they were always the Hellraiser movies. I don't know. It sure as hell doesn't feel like it. I only like the first 3 Hellraiser movies and any like real affection, especially 1 and 2. So this new Hellraiser film, I was starting to see like clips and images, and I was like, this looks totally awesome. And the director's a great choice. He just had a really good, strong film. So I'm like, this could be an excellent movie. This could be totally up my alley. I could love it. So I put it in, and I see the runtimes and about 100 minutes, maybe a little longer, almost 2 hours. I'm like, that's a bit rough for a Hellraiser movie. But okay, it is what it is. And you know, I know I complain about runtimes, but dictating runtimes does, you know, it doesn't change. You know, if you like it, who cares? So we get into this. And like I said, I will talk about the Cenobites first and foremost. I really liked Pinhead. I like who they cast. I think it's perfect. If anybody's read the Hellbound Heart novella, it matches perfectly to Clive Barker's sentiment, I believe. And some of the other Cenobites in the background are truly scary. The Weeper was unpleasant as shit to look at in a positive way for a horror film. So this one, it's weird because, like, right? Remember how like Farts 5 and 6 just turned into these like mysteries. There's like film noir with Pinhead in the background or something like that. I feel like this one does it a lot too, and like part 3 does it too. I guess 1 and 2 have a mystery quality about them, but they never really feel like straight up mystery films. They always feel like horror films, and this one does turn into like kind of a mystery of her trying to figure out what happened to her friend. And the rules are different. The rules are different in this one. One thing I truly loved, and I know people like don't compare it to the other ones, I can't help it, and this one is a good film. It's well made, it's well shot, it's well acted for the most part, except the lead baddie, the human baddie. I thought he was pretty terrible. I thought he was kind of shit. I'm sorry. I thought he was not up to snuff with the rest of the quality of the film. I don't think he's horrible. I just didn't think he was up to snuff. And it could be the writing. It could be his dialogue. It doesn't mean he's this bad actor. It could just be the dialogue. So what we have here is, this mystery where something, she triggers the box, of course. And our friend goes missing and dies. And from the Cenobites, of course. And she's trying to figure out how to get them back and everything. Kind of like, when Help Me, I'm in Hell and Hellraiser 2. So when she goes on, she gets more in depth and more people die, and she realizes she's actually playing a game for something. She's bringing the Cenobites victims, and she's going to get something in return. Now, this is one thing I liked about the original Hellraiser films is the mythos of like having to kind of piece everything together and feel how it works with the Lament configuration, Leviathan, these changing of the puzzle pieces and everything. I'm like, oh, you're kind of gathering some sort of knowledge of it, but you never fully gather exactly how everything works. In this one, they start laying everything out in detail to the point where I was like, I feel like they're over explaining this. I don't want to know this. I know a lot of people probably really love that kind of stuff, but I like a little bit of mystery in how everything works. And they're going through all these, resurrection and all this kind of stuff like that. So there's going to be spoilers here. I'm sorry. And I feel like they over explain things. I feel like they're going too much into the that kind of stuff, if that makes any sense for anybody. I feel like the second half of the film kind of just turns into a slasher film. It feels like a lot of repetitive chase, stop, chase, stop, chase, stop, chase, stop kind of deal. And I don't really have a problem with that because the Cenobites are scary. They're never in the shadows enough. In the first half they are, in the second half they're right up front and center. The gore is good. The gore is solid. It's on point. I enjoyed that. Not as gritty or gross looking because I think part of the quality about the two Hellraiser films, the original two, is that they have a gritty, nasty, cheap look to them. So the gore like really just looks, it is unnerving too, right? And they never fully get down to the depths of depravity of somebody like a Chenard, his character's inner stuff, and they don't embrace the sexual stuff quite as much either. So there's a lot that to be left desired for me in terms of a Hellraiser film. But saying that, it's well shot. It's well made. There's good gore. I definitely will watch it again before year's end, and I could have a complete 180. I do not dislike this. It's not a bad movie. People are like, this is the worst thing ever. It's good. It's good. It's just not, I guess, what I wanted, which is my fault. It's just there's parts of it that I really like, but I just can't help but compare it to the original Hellraiser. And I know it's not a remake or a reboot. I don't know what the hell it's just a sequel of some sorts. I don't know what you would consider it. And it is funny though because like it's better than most of the other Hellraiser movies. So we're fucking lucky we even got it. So we'll be at that. It's the same thing like Prey, the Predator movie. It's pretty fucking good. So it's like we're lucky we even got Prey or the Hellraiser, right? I'm glad they exist, and I will check those movies out again. I enjoy them. But the thing is, the Hellraiser movie left more to be desired for me. And the Cenobites, they talk a little bit more, but I feel like they're not as poignant in their dialogue. It doesn't feel like it's something like that. And the one thing, like I said, I love in part 2 where Pinhead stops female Cenobite, that's her name in the credits, from killing Tiffany, because she's the one who used the box. It's not hands that call us here. It's desire. Yet, this one, everybody's just calling it's sacrificing people to the box, which reminds me of the talesman or whatever whatever the fuck it was, not talesman, whatever the token or what do they call them, totem pole of Pinhead in part 3, right? They're sacrificing victims to that, or to skinless Julie or skinless Frank, right? Sacrificing to that. But it felt really weird that somebody picks up the box, doesn't know what it is, and like it's strange. It's strange. But that then Hellraiser 2, it was a different scenario there, I guess. But anyways, I enjoyed the movie. I will watch it again. I definitely want to give it another shake or another spin before I make my top 10 list. It could definitely creep up there and be there. It's just something that I feel like is interesting enough to reward or to get a second shot for me. But I don't know how I 100% feel about it. I felt the pacing was off. I felt it was too long. I felt like they didn't go to the places where I wanted it to go. And that's not a movie's fault. That's your expectations sometimes, right? Okay, the next one here. We're going to do a special show on 22 shots. I still don't know if it's happening, but it was going to be Hidden Gems, and we are all going to bring a movie to the show that the other two hosts hadn't seen. And so every time I bring up a movie that needs a nice Blu-ray, a nice DVD release, it is A Gun for Jennifer from 1997. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's an exploitation film, but it's also like a feminist movie. It's a punk rock movie. It's a gory revenge film, action film. It feels like a long-lost Abel Ferreira movie. And I love this fucking thing. It's New York. It's 90s. It's gritty. It's dirty. It's just everything I love about these kind of films. So it's directed. It's a filmmaking team. A husband and wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend, I believe. I can't remember at the time. Deborah Twist and Todd Morris made this film. Yeah, Deborah Twist and Todd wrote it, and then Deborah Twist produced it, and Todd Morris directed it. So I originally had heard about this film in the documentary. I believe it was on the Van Beber set from Dark Sky, Belly and the Beast or something like that, where I can't remember the film festival they go to, but it follows Van Beber, Swiss, Morris, follows Richard Stanley, Nacho Cerda, Kareem Hussein. It follows all these people taking their movie there. And I've seen all the movies that they're talking about in that documentary. Van Beber's doing The Manson Family, and I love it. And then we have this one, which I love it. And then we have Dust Devil, which I like. And then we have Subconscious Cruelty by Kareem Hussein, which I love. And then Nacho Cerda has Aftermath, which is a great film. So it's just like such a fucking amazing line of movies, and all these directors are there. And that's when I initially was like, what's A Gun for Jennifer? I don't know that one. So I tracked it down years ago, over 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and when I saw it, I was just like, that is such an amazing film, and I fell in love with it. So what we have here is, in the very beginning, it's so gritty, nasty New York. This poor girl, she's almost raped and killed by these two guys. This group of women save them, and they force her to kill them. They take her back to this bar, this strip joint, and they explain to who they are to her. They say, hey, we're a group of vigilantes, and they all have a long history, right? The woman who runs the strip joint is a social worker that knew them and stuff, and psychologist, and she helped them get all their shit back together. And all these women are just like very militant and very strong and tough and different, and just have these different attitudes and opinions and everything like that. And they're just like a great group of people, interesting people, and they've all had trouble with men, whether they were raped or beaten, and they've made this vigilante group, kind of like the Ladies Club, but not as this was way more gritty and dirty and violent than the Ladies Club. And it's kind of like in the line of that, or Act of Vengeance, if anybody's seen that, aka Rape Squad. And of course, you got to compare it to Miss 45, but that's just one woman going out and doing this. Like, these are organized. So they start to find criminals that are in the paper, the headlines, that got off with rape, or they got away with rape, they got away with beating a little girl, teen prostitution, and they start killing them. And it's amazing. But this tough female cop, who's kind of another lead in the film, starts to catch on to him and her partner. And like her detective, her chief in this movie is Arthur. What is it? Whatever. You'll know this guy right away. He's in Bringing Out the Dead. He's great in it. He's in Copland. He always plays like a cop authority figure. He's the chief. He's the biggest actor in the movie. He's tremendous in this too. His dialogue is great. So all the cops are really good too. There's another group of cops that are assholes and they have trouble with them. But no, they all get mixed in, and a lot of people get killed. And the end shootout is one of the best. It's one of the best end shootouts of all time on a low budget. The director was obviously inspired by Peckinpah. That's what Swiss says in the special features, and you can tell. It's just violent, and you hear all the shots get hit, and it ends in such a gritty, nasty way, like at this party, right? And there's like all this kind of like satanic shit going on, and gore, and just child prostitution about to happen. It's really bothersome. And it just gets chaotic, and people get shot in the crossfire, and it's just wild. And I was so impressed with, having like these characters, these bad guys in the background established for 2.5 minutes screen time. But by the time they start shooting, you know exactly who they are. You're like, you've established all these characters in 2.5 minutes fairly well. I know who they are. But all the women in this film are so good. I love all the characters, and I love that our lead character constantly has like a back and forth with one of the characters, and like eventually, obviously, they have to connect. It's just ultimately punk rock too. Like and they work in a strip joint, so it's like it's full of nudity and sex, but it's also like feels super pro feminist to me. I'm an idiot, so take that at face value. I'm a gorilla, but then also like it feels like very punk rock and just like get the fuck out of my face and gritty and exploitative and just wild. It's just the best. It's the best fucking thing ever. Gun for Jennifer. And this is where I made a huge mistake. And I realized that I didn't actually cover one of the movies I'm going to cover. So this is going to be a single shot here. Hopefully that's okay. This is the Patreon pick for Derek B. from 2016. This is called A Monster Calls. Now, this is going to be, I feel like I've been a real negative Nancy this week, and there's a lot of movies that I didn't like, that I should have liked, or maybe possibly just didn't connect with me on a level that I thought they should or they would. And this one is Monster Calls. Now, I didn't connect with this one. It's a very emotional film. It has, Sigourney Weaver in the film. She's very good in it. Surprisingly, like you'd think she's playing an English a woman, like older woman, and you're like, that's so crazy for Sigourney Weaver, but she does a very good job. So what we have here is this kind of very typical, like young kid. He's an outcast. His mother is very sick and dying. So like you think like a lot of these kind of like stories, like it's very much a typical kind of coming of age story in that aspect, and he's having trouble dealing with it. So he essentially like kind of reflects back, and there's this monster that visits him and tells him 3 stories. Now it kind of reminded me like Charles Dickens, right? Like the past, future, but it's not exactly that. And they're life lessons, and they're not like very clear-cut life lessons, black and white. They're very gray. They're very not matter of fact, they're very real life lessons, I guess you'd say. Kind of like the detailed life lessons, maybe in a possible. And a lot of them, they're animated. There's a lot of animated sequences, which are really cool. Liam Neeson plays the voice of the monster, and I'm not too sure how I felt about that. I mean, I love Liam Neeson in a lot of movies. I don't know. I mean, he's a good actor. He's got a great voice, but I'm not sure if his voice is what I would expect or want for that kind of role. So the movie to me, and I'm not trying to be negative or anything, it just felt very much like misery porn, where it's just like there's no light in the movie for me. Now there's like a silver lining at times, but the entirety of the film has no balance for me because it's all too dark and miserable. Like it feels very gloomy and sad. And now I know a lot of people might connect with this, but I tuned out because it was too sad. Well, something like Little Monsters is a goofy, fun movie, but it has these moments of rough stuff when the parents are getting divorced and when they're like the friendship. And those, I always say, if you can make me laugh, you can make me cry. But if you just come at me with tears in your eyes all the time, you're going to lose me at some point. And A Monster Calls lost me. It lost me pretty quick. And maybe that's just my own personal taste. I don't think it's poorly made. Well made. Well acted. The kid does a good job. It does tackle some heavy issues that would bother people. Maybe it's just too little gloomy for me to get into, right? Like I said, I always use this as an example. The Revenant is just a dark, sad movie. It's a bleak movie. But there's these moments of human kindness within it that happen. And there's human kindness here too. But there's these moments of, I guess, different kind of feelings in the movie where they change it up to a point, and I feel like it works for me. Here, I felt like it was the same tone the whole time, and that's fine. Usually you want the same tone. But the tone was just something that I kind of lost interest in about 25 minutes. It just felt too gloomy and too depressing, and like I said, misery porn. Now I've seen movies that do that, and they get Manchester at the Sea or By the Sea was very much misery porn, and I really like that movie. It kept getting worse and worse and worse for this guy, but it is what it is. This one, it definitely is like a well-made film. The animation is cool. The CGI on the monster is not bad. The concept is very cool. It's something that a lot of people I do think like, and it's a more serious attempt at this kind of story. But I feel these stories are best told with just a soft edge to them to get you to put your guard down. And this one, I feel like maybe some people do see it as a soft edge. I don't see any soft edge to it. It just kind of came in like a rock, trying to, nest to my skin. And I was like, no. You come in like a kitten, then you give them the claws. This is how I feel. A Monster Calls, I'm not upset I watched it, but it's not something that I think I would revisit. Hey guys, we're here to do another Universal, and this is The Man Who Laughs from 1927 by the same director as The Cat and the Canary, and the next movie, The Last Warning. The Last Warning is the next film. I don't know much about The Last Warning. That and The Last Waltz seem like borderline horror films, as is The Man Who Laughs. The number one thing I think that from this movie a lot of people that are into more modern things would say is, hey, The Man Who Laughs, definitely inspired the Joker. It takes about 1.5 seconds to looking at him to realize that Cesar Romero, Jack Nicholson, the Tim, the one from the television show, they all look just like this character. Mm-hmm. This is a strange film. It shares a lot of similarities between other Universal films in terms of angry mobs with torches and using the terms gypsies and a lot of these kind of characters and corrupt kings and stuff. So it does feel a lot like The Hunchback, I would say, with a lot of the kind of groups of people and different circus acts and all this kind of stuff. So,
I think it's important to point out that this is based off a book written by Victor Hugo, who wrote The Hunchback.
There you go.
I mean, maybe those themes are
definitely
present.
Well, we also have, the Phantom of the Opera with the big mobs, and then later on Frankenstein. So it's all definitely coming from this, right from the very beginning of the Universal films. Like I said, this one's not exactly a horror film. I bet in 1927 it was considered one. So we have this, this is such a weird opening kind of idea. There's a group of people that perform surgeries on people to kind of make them I guess you'd say traveling sideshows so they can make money from them. One day, although the king benefits from this, he bans all of them, sends them on a ship. But there is a couple that get left behind. Well, one that gets left behind. They kick him off the ship, and he's the man who laughs, a young boy who's forced to have this kind of twisted, wicked smile on his face. No matter what he does, it never comes off. He is taken in by an old man who takes kindness on him. After he shows kindness to a woman who's died, an abandoned child. These two are destined to kind of be together with this old man while he opens up kind of this traveling sideshow with them. The girl is blind, and the man who laughs, has this face. And everybody thinks it's the most hilarious thing ever. They point and laugh at him. Obviously messes him up until eventually he has a dark secret. Not a dark secret, a good secret. But a lot of people are keeping it away from him, kind of the higher-ups, because they're trash and they can benefit from it. Until it all comes to a crazy kind of love triangle. That's, I guess, how you put the man who laughs.
Yeah, it's I don't know if this is like a horror movie. I feel like it's shot like a horror movie. It has some the elements of it.
It has a lead character that comes from a horror film.
Right. You got a disfigured guy. You got the traveling circus.
You got the tragedy
got the
angry
of mom. Him. You got the tragedy. But it really is a melodrama.
Big time. And it's an hour 50-minute melodrama that's silent.
It is, yeah. It is a long film. It is a silent film.
Nothing wrong with a silent film, but I do think I complain when a movie's an hour and 50 minutes. Nowadays, new Hellraiser, good movie, hour and 50 minutes, not needed. Man Who Laughs, not needed, even if it is Victor Hugo.
Well, I think it's hard when it's because the plot is really like a political intrigue kind of plot for the most part, and so I think it can be kind of hard to follow.
Or tedious because it's a lot of people doing the same thing, backstabbing and repeating. And
it repeats.
It's very repetitive in that.
You only get, sparse lines of dialogue, obviously, with the cue cards. But, I mean, it's good, but it's, like I said, it was kind of a chore to watch.
I would say that the first 50 minutes are a major chore to watch. The first 20 minutes are good because we get the setup of the character and the childhood and all that stuff is good. Mm-hmm. And then we have a huge lull in 30 minutes of kind of where you start to lose interest until, I guess, what's her name? She enters the picture and starts the interest in the man who laughs. Glenn Plain, what's his name? His actual name?
The actor's name?
No. In the movie,
I think it's Gwynplaine.
I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I've seen the name before, but so she has an interest in him, and she also finds out a secret. And that's the best part when she starts laughing hysterically and smiling because of the secret, but he thinks she's just laughing at him like all the others, and that's part of the weird love triangle thing there.
So he loves his blind.
Because she's never seen him, which reminds me more of Frankenstein stuff
she loves him, but he's like, I'm not worthy of her love because she doesn't know what I actually look like. Yes. Now here comes this, I think she's a duchess, and she's like, she sees him, she sneaks out to catch his performance. She doesn't find him like laughable or monstrous, so maybe she's intrigued by it, and she writes in her letter, is it love or is it pity?
That's the best line in the whole movie.
Right.
Is it love or is it pity?
Is it love or is it pity? And so he wants to go to her and if this is genuine, if this woman can love him and not think and not laugh at him, then he deserves the love that he has for I don't want to say sister, but
well, and also at the same
partner.
time the interest in in her. So like, but
Right.
there's a misunderstanding when she realizes that the note she's been carrying is actually written about him, and he's supposed to inherit a bunch of stuff, and she just starts hysterically laughing because it's such a weird, ironic thing.
It's like because she is in power because his father was the former like
Yes,
duke or whatever.
and he was murdered.
He got murdered and so the main character got cast aside. So she gets all this power, and it's like, oh, by the way, this man that you're about to meet is the rightful heir to what you own. So it like the irony is like, you know, she sees the irony, she laughs, and
But he misinterprets it, which
Right.
creates more complex things. The very
It
end of the
does.
movie, there's a big mob chase, and like he's hanging there at the edge of the building, and I couldn't help think of Jack Nicholson in Tim Burton's Batman,
Right.
and I thought that's the way it was going to end. Although this ending is surprisingly good, good natured and sweet and
it's
sweet.
a good ending.
Which
you know,
I mean,
happy ending.
I mean, it's a happy ending. I don't know how good it is. It's a very fine ending, but it's just very much a different ending in what we're used to. So like this movie's not necessarily, like I said, it has the horror, it has the gothic stuff and the horror elements, but it's not really a horror film.
No.
Which is many of the old school Universal films aren't technically horror; they're thriller and they borderline or whatever. But yeah, this one I think is obviously worth watching. It's a classic film. It has a lot of good set pieces and extras, and you know, scale is enormous in a lot of places. But it is tedious. I'm not gonna lie, it is
Right.
tedious for me, and that just could be me, my young age showing, and I'm not that young, but my stupidity, I guess, showing, or maybe you just watch too many silent movies back to back.
And it
that
gets
have
tiring.
we had this problem with the Hammer movies. When we hit a certain stage in the Hammer films, no matter how good they are alone, when you watch 2 or 3 in a short succession, they become very repetitive.
Right.
And you know, they used to do them in double features back in the day, and they probably paired them up a little bit better sometimes, the Hammer films, but usually they were kind of when chronologically whenever they came out. But regardless, so this one, like I said, I feel like we'll get a breath of fresh air when we get into the talkies, when we get into like Dracula and Spanish Dracula. We'll get kind of like a rejuvenated sense. But right now we're on that like tail end of the silent films, and we're kind of like, okay, we've had enough. And it's not as good as Phantom. It's not as good as Hunchback, to me at least. I don't think it's as iconic either. I mean, we're talking about Lon Chaney Sr. here, and this actor in here is very good.
Oh, I think he's fantastic.
He's the best part of the film.
Yeah, I think he looks great. It's you know, and it's hard to gauge the acting in these because they are silent films.
And he's got a very weird style about his acting, and he's in a couple of the other ones I think before too. As kind of a strange character.
The girl that plays the
Duchess.
The Duchess, I think that she
was in the
fantastic.
last one too. She was very good look. She looked just like Madonna.
Yeah,
from
she looks
Dick
like
Tracy.
Yeah. Dea was okay. That's the blind girl. She was decent.
Fine. The old man was good.
Old man was good. I did like the villain in this.
Yeah, he was like a Beetlejuice kind of looking. It looked like Beetlejuice. But
every time I watch a silent film, there's always like a Beetlejuice looking character.
Well, was it Metropolis? The main bad guy looks just like Beetlejuice from the cartoon.
Right. But no, it's weird because like the villain in this is actually a court jester that becomes like a political figure, and he's like is chick in this is like, you know, persecute this clown and either give him power or not. I don't quite know what his MO is.
Yeah. We also have like a lot of the circus performers in the background and stuff, and we kind of dive into that towards the end, which is pretty fun. And there's kind of an all-out like small-scale battle between people, or a struggle, I would say. Anyways, I'd give it 6.5 out of 10. I know it sounds like a low rating, but it's the way I feel.
Yeah, like 3.5 out of 5.
Somewhere around there.
It's a bit meh. I'm definitely the main guy is
the highlight.
Is the highlight, and like I said, he does directly inspire the Joker. You know, it's
when the Joker was the 40s, right?
He's a Joker, and people say like this is like a known thing. Like, this is the man who laughs is what inspired the Joker, the clown that can't
being stuck, that he can't smile. You know, that's exactly Jack Nicholson's story in the Tim Burton Batman. He falls into the vat, he can't stop smiling.
Right,
his face is literally stuck like this. So there's a lot of renditions that all feel very much like this character, except he's more good natured, while the Joker. Well,
they do the whole. You know, she's blind, so she doesn't know what he looks like, and so like he has her feel his face, and you know, then she feels like, oh, he's got this crazy smile, like not like she would ever know what a smile looks like, but you know, and that shows up in so many
she's felt
things.
Other people's faces too. That happens in On Mass Part 25. It happens in the Toxic Avenger. I'm sure there's the Frankenstein element with the blind man who takes him in, and I think that they show that. Is that in Bride? They show it, but it's in the initial book. I can't remember which movie Universal Film actually shows it. It's one of the first two. But yeah, we have the blind man who befriends him because he can't see, you know,
right?
And that's a nice touch. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but the 85 movie The Bride, there's kind of a switch on that. Remember, the blind man actually is going to take advantage of the monster for paying for something too much, and he gives him some of his money back, but still he wasn't exactly, the same blind man from the original source material. But anyways, yeah, next week is The Last Warning. I'm pretty sure, or it's The Last Waltz. I believe it's The Last Warning, followed by The Last Waltz, followed by maybe Dracula. So we're getting in there.
Okay.
I at least want to get to Dracula before we get to like the Halloween, which
it would be nice to get there, and I think
it would be definitely nice to fit for sure. So like I said, 6.5 out of 10 for The Man Who Laughs.
Yeah, 3.5.
Oh, we should mention that there's two different soundtracks, the original, and then there's one from 2018 on there. And I think that there were some initial sound effects that they had on one of the prints, too. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, we watched it with the newer soundtrack, but we did check out a little bit of the older stuff as well. So
that's it.
All right, let's get these questions, comments, concerns, all that kind of stuff. So first up, last week I asked basically a movie that made you completely relook at your life and how you felt about it and all this kind of stuff. So, Chris Harper, I kept hearing about No Escape and figure I'd watch it and thought it was awesome. R.I.P. Ray Liotta. He's great in it. Love Ray Liotta. Ken Coakley. This is regarding the question of the movies that made me look inside myself. Two come to mind. The first is Fade to Black. The extremes that guy went to take movies in art form that's supposed to evoke all kinds of emotions and using their personas to hurt and kill people. In some ways, I was like Binford, but I like to let off what George Clooney called in From Dusk Till Dawn. Hey, you don't fuck with me, I don't fuck with you vibe. I've always been grateful that I don't have a violent streak. The other one is Trick or Treat, which I saw at theater I worked at. I graduated from high school, but the movie really hit home how many people were and are still judgmental. Thanks for the Cinema Wasteland upload. I really miss going to conventions. Do they have a lot of movie vendors at that show? Severin, Vinegar Syndrome, Full Moon used to be there. Didn't see him this time. Trauma, Synapse is there. Diabolic is there. Diabolic DVD. I'm probably missing a couple. There's some other people that bring a lot of tapes to sell and movies and everything like that. Did I hit all the heavy hitters? Toe Tag is there usually. So I think I got all the ones. And he says, when I used to go to Rock and Stock, there was only Vinegar Syndrome table, and then they were there every year. Diabolic DVD had a table one year, and they then stopped, as did Severin, who had a table in 2006 and never returned. There was also the Walker Stalker Con Boston that had no movie vendors, nor did Scarecon. And Kentuckinator. NBC would show No Escape, edited of course, as a Sunday night movie in good old days. As a kid, I enjoyed so many edited for TV movies. It was like an adult genre fiction with training wheels. Kentuckinator continues. Blood of the Chupacabras has neither blood nor chupacabras. Discussed. He's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. Movie Junkie reviews. Landmine Goes Click was intense. Didn't expect it to go where it did. I Am the Ice Lord. Excellent video. As always, Dave, you're the man. Thank you. Zach Nolan. Enough cannot be said about the importance of soundtracks in horror films. Could you imagine Phantasm or Beyond the Darkness without them? It would be interesting to get a top 10 of your favorite movie soundtracks at some point. Oh yeah, I definitely should do that. Erdank loves For Loco. Love it. Is there some sort of Patreon or some other way of those of us who've been following you for years can send some cash your way to thank you for all the time and effort you've put into your uploads over the years? That sounds like somebody like a plant. Like, hey, I fell on there. Patreon, Mrparka, search me out. I know that YouTube has this tip jar thing too. I've never used it, so I don't know how it works. And now we have some answers for the main question. Ryan Vincent Logston, Requiem for a Dream. David Heron, Prozac Nation. Tom Brugger, It's a Wonderful Life. Brandon Myers, Definitely Promising Young Woman. Messed me up for weeks. Me too. Thought about it for a long time. Giorgio Argenti, Fight Club. Jason Bard, 8.5. Chris Truex, Falling Down. Matt Jefferson, What Dreams May Come. Chet Turner, The Misfits. Ian Ura, Punch Drunk Love. I always said Sandler's character is that is the one that most relatable to me in any movie. Salvador Funkenstein, The Holy Mountain. Kayla Elizabeth, Girl Interrupted. Dustin Mills, Dogma. Herbert West, Wag the Dog. Jay Sorensen, The Hours. Brandon Jones, The End of the Tour hit deep for reasons I still can't explain. And The Case for Christ for anger with my father who wasn't there. Definitely a part that made me take a deep look. Matthew Hudson, I know there's a better answer, but Ed Wood does immediately spring to mind. Thomas H. Peterson, for some reason, the first movie that came up with was Brazil. Tyler Taddo, Tidio, sorry. As cringy as it sounds, Promising Young Woman was the last movie that really made me reflect and had real implications on my life. I ended a very, very long friendship because of that movie. Jeff Keith, Zodiac. Rebecca Reinhart, American Beauty. Next page here. Peter England, The Thing. I couldn't help not mention it. My apologies. And he says, also in the name of the Father. Jeremy R. I don't know if a movie ever made me question who I am. I'm too delusional and confident for that to happen. I do think that Rock and Roll, however, had the biggest impact on my aesthetics and what I yearn for in consuming media. Brandon Young. As for a recent one, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That movie impacted me profoundly. Messed me up for a few days. Mura Guldovic, Cutting Moments. That's a crazy movie. I could see that. Dan Chase, Transpotting 2. Lacey Liu, for me it's got to be Donnie Darko. I watched it at the right age. I would say I get something new out of it every watch. Donnie is my favorite character of all time, and I just love how blunt he is and calls everyone out. Also made me realize that life can be cut short at any moment, so it really is best to start living your best life ASAP. I could go on and on about life lessons from that movie. Sean Donohue, Caligula, Bill Rodriguez, The Elephant Man, Tyler Tedio, some more esoteric choices I didn't empathize with on a direct personal level that made me reflect. The Plague Dogs, Three Colors Blue, Secrets and Lies, Autumn Sonata. Two more I did personally empathize with because I drew life parallels but didn't necessarily make me look too deep inside, but reflected on time periods of my life. In the Mood for Love, Betty Blue. Ezekiel Bates, Possession, Cody Lee Harden, Ghoulies Go to College, Dave Z, The Doors, Corey Clark, a Serbian film, Neil Machendo, Fight Club, Kyle Rayburn, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Travis Turvo, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, Changed My Life. I even read the book after. Dennis Record, Johnny Soko and the Flying Robot. And his Flying Robot, okay. Maria Lucia Lilly, About Time, 2013. I watched it around the same time I was beginning to question a relationship I was in. It really made me think if this was what I wanted for my life anymore. Carly Sonnenfeld, In High School, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Recent time, Lords of Chaos. Mike Merriman, Apocalypse Now, how fragile the mind can be and how easily it can be corrupted. Daniel Carson, Secony, I always have trouble with that word, New York. Derek B, Mona Lisa. Eric Ischelberger, Hellraiser. Daniel Datia, Red Rocket, A Ghost Story, The Florida Project. BJ Colangelo, Spontaneous, great choice, me too. Cam Reb, Thelma and Louise, changed the way I think about life. Cody Coleman, Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Tracy McFace, High School, Internal Sunshine. Scott Shermer, Pump Up the Volume. Stephen Nemeth, Under the Volcano. So I don't have a question this week. We're just gonna, we're gonna get out of here and do that weird cut. And I noticed I used I used a different angle here for this, so hopefully this is okay for you guys. Yeah, I'm gonna draw. No, let's do the draw the Patreon. Now I didn't put the new names in the this bag this time. I'll put them in afterwards. I feel like we got to get some of these ones on the bottom down first before I add more. We're gonna do 5, and I know somebody's up in line. They haven't been drawn out in a long time, but I can't remember who it is. So send me a message again, or I'll search it. We have John Wilhelm, Horror at 37,000. Eau Claire, What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Okay, we got some good ones so far. I got three here, so this is probably going to be the other 3. We have David Luton, The Great Beauty, 2013. David Luton, Scum. There we go. And last, David Luton, 400 Blows. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, have a good one.